Gio has some visa issues, so he has been sidelined from action. Pojo Man, the coach of TSM, is stepping back into the fray.
We are having Poj step in while Gio sorts out his visa issues.
He's not going to be doing the coaching as much anymore, but we do have like data. He used to be like our full-time analyst, but now he's putting in work for more strategical and becoming more of like a coach to himself. So he's going to pick up, I guess, a lot of that.
So whenever we need a timeout, we'll talk to Data, call it, and then I'm sure Data and Poj will kind of be relaying everything that we need to in game.
Stepping into it, I feel like I have a lot more confidence working with the team. Poj still has that leadership voice, but I'll definitely have to pull a lot of the responsibilities. I would consider it as like a two-headed beast for the coaching staff. The head coach is more focused on individual player development and the team's development. The strategic coach is more focused on outward analysis and strategy design, counter-stratting opponents, breaking them down, planning for events. So it's a lot of what an analyst would do, but I make a lot of decisions off of it. A lot of early morning is data collection. A lot of it's automated through a guided system, so a lot of that's just tracking the information. So I might provide like multiple outputs or map bands or how we're going to play a map to the point where we're all making the decisions as a team. Poj and I do a lot of the same stuff. It's just a matter of filling the holes when they need to be filled.
I'm Bolo, and I'm Flex and Entry for TSM. You're watching Stage 2 of R6 NAL.
Welcome, everybody, to our very first matchup of the day. You heard the preamble from the desk, but now it's time to actually get into the goods. Michael, TSM versus DarkZero, battle of the two huge orgs. A lot on the line here, and for DZ, it's a new look team going up against TSM, who've had to sub out Gio for Pojo. What are our expectations for this matchup?
Well, Parker, this is expected to be the defining match for both of these teams in the rest of this stage. It's been an interesting journey so far, but we're only 2 play days in, this being number 3. We're all still kind of wondering how these teams match up against each other. Now, the last 3 times these teams met, it was TSM to take the win. You actually have to go all the way back to October of 2020 in Stage 2 of the 2020 NAL season in order for you to see a DarkZero over TSM win. And of course, as you mentioned, Parker, those were totally different teams at that time.
Well, they both come in today sitting on top of the North American League standings. Speaking of sitting on top of, I don't know what is sitting on top of Merc's head.
What is that?
That is an interesting contraption of some sorts. I'm not entirely...
It's probably like really cold or something.
I couldn't possibly begin to tell you what that is, but it is. Hopefully at some point we will get an answer. Anyway, for these teams, TSM has been by far and away the most dominant team so far through this stage of the North American League. They've only dropped 3 rounds in their very first matchup of this stage up against Disrupt Gaming. TSM prevailed 7-3.
Right.
The immediate follow-up match, Michael, was a 7-0 walloping over Beast Coast. And they're doing all of this without Gio as well. What do you think that means for the rest of the stage for them?
I think that TSM is looking really good, and a big part of it isn't just, oh, wow, they're generally playing well. They have completely revised their play style since the 6 Invitational, and it shows in their gameplay. Now, I don't think this is necessarily anything directly to do with Pojo versus Gio or any of that nonsense. I just think that TSM, as a team, has a different plan and a different approach to how they're playing Siege. I also will say, though, the matches they played so far, we're talking about Disrupt and Beast Coast. I don't think that's a true test of TSM's potential. I'm looking forward to seeing if DarkZero can push them a little bit farther and potentially even take a win here. I think this is going to be the biggest threat that TSM has faced so far through this stage.
Well, DarkZero obviously enters the day as second. As we said, these were the top 2 teams. DZ is the team just below TSM, and they've done so with 2 victories, but both of them were very well earned. DarkZero's 2 wins come all the way back in Playday number 1 over Mirage, and then over Space Station to follow it up on Wednesday. For DarkZero, both matchups went the same way. They bursted through the gates to huge leads. They sat on match point, and then in both matchups, they squandered the lead and forced overtime. Now, DZ ended up prevailing in both of those matches by identical scorelines, 8-6 over Mirage and 8-6 over Space Station. But they dropped 2 points, a point per game each time.
Yeah.
What do you think DZ can do right this time to ensure that if they grab a lead against TSM, they don't relinquish it and force overtime for them and their fans?
It's weird, Parker, because with DarkZero, when they're playing, you see them make so many amazing executions on their attack, and their defenses will be rock solid, and then suddenly they'll have a round or two where they just let too many things slip, too many major mistakes. The roamers are too far off site, not enough coverage on the site, easy access for a quick attack onto site for their opponents. No matter what, it's a hit and miss of how much the DarkZero attacks or defenses are refined, and it's almost like their planning sometimes just falls through. Now, this could have to do with the fact that they're still getting used to their current roster, and that is very likely the case. So I think over time, that'll get ironed out. You know, I mean, and just to quickly step back from what's happening right now, a big question I have on my head with DarkZero is, over time, as in, you know, years from now, when is DarkZero going to have to stop correcting for having a new roster? When is that going to stop being a thing? Because it feels like it gets refreshed every couple months at this point.
I would actually need to crunch the numbers on this, but I hesitate to think of the top 4 teams historically in North America over the last couple seasons, stages, etc. That's been Oxygen, Space Station, TSM, and DarkZero. Out of those big 4 teams that have so often represented the region at international events, at LANs, etc., DZ strikes me as the team that has made the most roster changes, and it's not particularly close. I could be wrong. Like I said, I would need to actually crunch the numbers and pull the numbers on it, but you're absolutely right. Every single time we see DZ play at either a second stage or at an international event, we talk about how this is the first time that they're playing under this banner. Obviously, BC is not a new player, but having him come in off of the roster and then out off of the roster and then back coaching, etc., obviously can't be consistent for the team. Same with Pojo Man right now on TSM. Focusing, though, on the big 2 teams that are playing right now and not just DarkZero, they come in dominating the statistics, Michael. Chala and Bolo are the 2 highest rated players. Guess who's next? Hyper on DZ. KD, Chala, and Hyper are tied in first. Bolo is third. On entry, Hyper is number 1. Merc is number 3. Panbazoo is number 4. Chala, Bolo, Hyper, and Panbazoo are the top 4 KOST in the whole league. On your screen right now, before we dive into the rest of the standings, as you can see, Chala and Hyper have all the hardware so far this season, says they've currently topped the league in kill differential. Whose will be higher after this match?
That is the question. A direct head-to-head with these teams. Again, though, you know, one of the things I mentioned earlier, and I want to bring it up again here, we haven't seen DarkZero beat TSM in a good long time. So I'm curious if this is going to be the breakthrough. I mean, we've got so much change with both of these squads, so maybe that change will fall in favor of DarkZero. I mean, you can't really compare the matches that DarkZero have had and the matches that TSM have had already in this stage to each other, because they're very different stories. So again, as I mentioned before, this is the defining match for the rest of the stage for both of these teams. Who will sit atop the pile?
I'm fascinated to see how this match is going to go down, because there's just so much up in the air. TSM obviously holds the better record. We got some confirmation, by the way, from Jesse Chick in the background while we were talking that DZ has indeed made the most roster changes since the inception of the North American League when you compare them to their peers in the historic Big 4 that we talk about, which obviously is TSM, Space Station, and OXG. I would guess that OXG is second because they have made some changes as well. Obviously, Slash and Bio moving off of the team, picking up Kino and Yaga. But we'd have to actually go and look at the proper timeframes from that.
Right.
By the way, the only category where there isn't a member of TSM in the top 5, unless you attribute ties, is plants. Right now, Chala has the most plants on the team with 1, which puts him tied, or I think it would be like 9th, because a whole whack of people have 2 plants apiece. Outside of that, if you go on to SiegeGG and you look up these numbers, it really tells you a story about how top heavy these 2 games have been. And obviously, Michael, it's just 2 play days. A lot can change. We've seen teams climb to the top after 3 games and then just sink like an anchor.
That's true. I mean, and again, that's why I think this is the defining match, Parker. I think this is going to be a really important one for both teams. But it is always still, even if it's only 2 matches, Parker, it's still fun to point out the fact that Chala has died 4 times this stage. And, obviously, after today, that probably, I mean, maybe, but it probably won't still be the case. All that conjecture, all that, so we're talking about all the, what could happen in this match. Let's go ahead and find out what will happen in this match. As we load into Kafe with TSM starting on defense, DarkZero starting on attack, go straight into the operator ban phase and find out what this one's going to look like.
Well, I'm curious here if we're going to see any deviations. So far, the 2 most banned operators are Thatcher, and I believe Maverick is currently in second for most attacker bans. Valkyrie is a must ban on defense. A map like Kafe, I expect to see her as well.
Right.
So far, Thatcher, very first ban on attack. So things are pretty normal. Nature is healing, and look at that. Michael Maverick also banned.
Yeah, I mean, we do see some Maverick bans. So far through this stage, he's been a lesser banned attacking operator, but we've seen a much more healthy spread of bans on the attacking side, so that's not too crazy. Again, the Maverick ban with the Thatcher ban creates a kind of a difficult prospect for opening things up, especially on a map like Kafe. You might even have to bring Kali when attacking the bottom floor. The Defender bans, Valkyrie has become this... I don't know what to call... I guess it's the Thatcher of defense. She's so overtly strong that you have to get rid of her, or you have to constantly be thinking about her. So in competitive play, we often see her banned. And here she is on the chopping block. We've been seeing more Echo play as of late in the NAL. So getting rid of that Echo does not surprise me in the least. And the ban phase, Parker, you asked if we would have anything interesting or different happen in it. The answer is no.
Not really.
No.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The only thing that I think is worth speculating upon is the timing of that Valkyrie ban. Now, obviously, Maestro is an incredibly strong operator on this map on every single site. And yeah, we know. Back in the olden days of DarkZero, playing on this with Hot and Cold on the old roster, well, Maestro was a part of their strategy, so it would be understandable to me that you wouldn't want to take it out. But Maestro is also a very pivotal operator for TSM, whether it's Merc's hands, whether it's in Chala's hands. And DarkZero banning out the Valkyrie first leads me to believe 2 things. Number 1, obviously, they don't want to play against a Valkyrie. Nobody does. But you could have potentially left the Valkyrie ban up, taken out the Maestro, and seen if TSM would respond accordingly and do the job for you. Now, in this case, because you ban the Valkyrie instead of having TSM do it, that's going to leave TSM with an option to ban whatever they want. They ban out the Echo. They don't really need to use it. That's fine. I don't know if that strategically really matters for DarkZero, but it is the only thing really worth noting about because everything else is so standard with those bans.
Yeah, no, I checked the stats. I mean, DarkZero plays it 15% of the time when available. This is the Echo. It has a higher win rate, 74%, but it's not that crazy. DarkZero can live without an Echo. They're not suffering from that ban, so it's really just a preference thing, I think, for TSM. Now,
it makes sense. It makes sense in that regard. One thing to watch for TSM is the Nitro Cell comes out from Merc. It claims Hyper. That's a good start for TSM in the very first round here on Kafe. The highest flying performer in terms of player on DZ. Well, he's flying high because that Nitro Cell shot him up in the air. That is a tough loss. Your Zofia is down. No stuns, and concussions are gone. The info that you get from that destruction is all gone. Rough going for DZ.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they recover from that. Oh, nice shot from Bolo. Down goes Pambazoo. And there you go. It's getting worse and worse for DarkZero as time goes on. Now this, Parker, already was the question I had most directed at TSM. Are they going to be able to maintain this rigid, direct type defense that they've been doing against all these other NAL teams against DarkZero? At least in this first round, the answer appears to be yes. It's working out well for TSM, just taking these fights directly so far.
Well, one of the operators that was on DZ's lineup, who's now gone, being played by Pambazoo, is Ash. And, well, now... Pardon me, TSM. My apologies for having a thought that I was trying to convey live. That's the first round in the books, by the way. Stopped literally mid-sentence by a hail of bullets from TSM, and my sentence was just as punishing as the end of that round for DarkZero. It's a flawless first round for TSM.
Oh boy. Now, okay, so a couple things at play here, Parker. Number one, Kafe. Kafe is the type of map where there are a lot of bottlenecks, yeah? There are a lot of things you need to break through as the attacking team. In that round, TSM, they held true to those bottlenecks. And that is the second thing, Parker. It's the TSM. I've been talking about it every single time I see TSM play now. No other team in NAL is doing it quite like them right this second. And it's very interesting to watch. All TSM did there was pick your typical roam spots that you usually see on Kafe, and they held those spots instead of retreating. When prompted by drones, or any piece of utility, or repel, or what have you, anything DarkZero threw at TSM, instead of retreating, as you are so often going to see in NAL, TSM just put their guns up and took a fight. And that is the difference. Now, there were a couple bits of hilarity there, specifically what happened down by Engine. That was just, oh boy. That was just funny. That was comedy. But in general, that's the main thing that's happened that last round. And it's going to, I was wondering if it would happen yet again. It's the same reason why TSM was so dominant in their first two matches of this stage. I maybe DarkZero will figure it out as time goes on, but so far, good start for TSM with a flawless.
Last time we saw TSM have a good look on this map of Kafe, they had that intricate setup inside of the bathroom with Bolo playing in there. There was castle barricades all around them, Jaeger ADSs, some Maruni gates. They've obviously opted to not go with that strategy, so it was something that maybe they thought was good enough for a map or two, and then it had worn out its welcome. Instead, this looks like a pretty standard utility soak style of defense from them. Goyo Shields will try to eat up as many of those explosives as is humanly possible, and of course DarkZero accounts for that by bringing 4 operators that are capable of blowing things up in the Flores, Sledge, Ash, and Zofia. I think this is as good a time as ever for me to talk about it. Pambazoo is playing Ash, whose pick rate has plummeted since she got a host of nerfs. Iana's pick rate has skyrocketed, and Flores has had a healthy role in the meta too. So DZ obviously really want their explosives here, and instead of going with Iana, they're instead going to trot out the Ash, which I think is an interesting choice, given how it seems to have fallen out of favor.
Yeah, it's objectively inferior as operators go. I mean, you're just getting the movement speed bonus over Iana, who has 1 extra explosive, so... And the same gun. Nobody's using the R4C in comp anymore. Anyway, the fallback here from TSM is being forced by DZ, so this is the best attack we've seen, obviously, from them, but they'll lose the first body all the same. And once again, it is Hyper to die early on before he's able to influence the round in the ways that we know he is capable of. Breach is open, but Bojo Man's just gonna land another nasty shot. Down goes Pambazoo. NJR will get Bolo, so at least there is some exchange. And that's a smoke. It's a great pick, but it's still a better exchange for TSM as they lose control of the top floor.
BC's got that vantage point that you need to play off of as it's going to look at where the default plant tends to go down by the bookcase by the B-bomb. And Pojo's not looking correctly. And even after they must have heard BC up there, I understand that Hibana's a dainty lady. She's a one armor. She's not going to make a ton of noise, but you can hear her tap dancing around, especially with the way the sound works in this game. So for Pojo, that's bad. He picked up the 2 kills for his team thus far. Worth noting as well in the final 30 seconds, Hyper to die first. He has the best entry stats in the league. He's now lost them because he went -2 so far. As for the rest of TSM, well, it's a 3v3. Things are not so dire for DarkZero. BC has done a lot of work. He's getting the plant down now. Nobody seems to know this. Coverage from the doorway. Watching that bookcase that I referred to, they need to be wary of pillars. The clip's finished off. It leaves just NJR and BC by that diffuser, which goes down. Nitro cell eaten by BC. The retake has claimed everybody but NJR. 1v3. Swings, connects, looks up top. He has no idea where that target prioritization is going to come from. Hopping on that diffuser, he's running out of time. He goes for the vault out, but if Chala sticks it, he can very easily get it. No, NJR's down in the clutch, and it's Chala again. 2 in a row for TSM, and you know what? If Chala had stuck that diffuser, he probably would have gotten it, but regardless, he walks away with the kill. Doesn't really matter. 2-0 TSM.
Excellent try from NJR. He unfortunately went for the vault, locked him into rotation, but there's more to pick apart than what happened in that clutch situation there at the end. The biggest thing is that DarkZero was successful at dislodging the TSM roamers, and they did force some of the ones to fall back who didn't actually decide to stay true to their own position. Now, of course, it was much later in the round. As I'm sure many of you noticed, there was very little time left on the clock when DarkZero started their plant. And I also like the fact that TSM went for a very constructed isn't the right word, maybe structured on retake. They didn't overextend knowing that the diffuser was being planted, which is so often the case in those situations. So you got to appreciate the patience there at TSM. You also have to respect the fact that DarkZero was able to so effectively dislodge those roamers upstairs. We don't see that very often against TSM as of late, and so props to DarkZero for that, even though, obviously, they didn't win the round in the end. That was a good and solid round. I think if we see more of those, this is going to be a heck of a match, Parker.
Close, right to the very bitter end. DZ's hold after that plant went down wasn't particularly strong. 2 players escaped outside, and well, they read the call off of Bolo's vault correctly, but a 3v1 with the angle that you're playing at, rotate somebody over to pillars, keep somebody on that diffuser, you're going to be in trouble. That round, though, in the books, we're now underway with round number 3, and I talked about this in round 2. This setup inside of the bathroom, and obviously it'll be highlighted now here. Bolo will sit on cams, on top of mute jammers, on top of ADSs, castle barricades up there, laser gates, a mirror window.
Yeah.
Look at everything that is going into this particular setup.
So we've seen this before. It was used at the Six Invitational by a couple teams. It's a nice one. I really do like this. It basically just focuses on leveraging as much utility away from the attackers as possible before you have to fall off of that position. Now, one thing to stress here is that a well-placed Flores drone will circumvent all of the denial that you have set up. So you have to be very careful, and that's why the mute jammers are also placed on the mirror window. So it's all about how attentive Bolo is, the placement of those mute jammers, and if NJR is able to finesse the situation to get his drones to detonate on the ADSs. Still, though, no matter what, you're looking at a lot of utility to burn on this position, and Bolo is just the player to have here to waste as much of it as possible.
The Thatcher ban as well that came in from TSM is going to pay huge dividends because you have to go after those mute jammers if you want to take control of the wall. Nitro Cell goes out. They've been so good for TSM thus far. Grenade from Eclipse does go, but no, nothing for it. Pojo, again, second round in a row, starts off the killing. That's 3 rounds now where TSM have been exceptional on the entry. But BC doesn't care. He doesn't give a hoot at all. Look at him taking the engagement as best he can. A bit of hubris on his end, though, as Bolo cuts him down to size. Diffuser picked up by NJR above. He'll have to rotate on over. Pambazoo taken out by Bolo, still in this position. There's a minute and 14 seconds left in this round, and, well, half of the server is dead at this point. BZ went for broke. They tried to take advantage of a quick push into that bathroom where Bolo was headed up, and it did not work so well for them.
Now it's just Hyper and NJR. Now, Hyper hasn't been able to play yet. He's been getting picked off early. So this is his opportunity. He puts something on the board. NJR, on the other hand, has been the top performer for his team so far. So don't count out DZ yet. That's a nice shot on a Merc. Backbar storage. Suddenly, the score is a lot more even. Smoke there to cover the mirror window, which will allow NJR to take control of Pixel. Here they're going to have problems as Hyper goes down, and so does NJR, despite the smoke. There it is. TSM take their 3rd round in a row. All up that position by Pixel. Nobody able to dislodge Bolo from that spot.
Well, you talked about how Chala was only going to die, what is it, 3 or 4 times?
He had only died 4 times going into this match.
I don't believe he's died so far this game. So
Has he?
we're now 3 rounds in, and I'm reasonably certain that Chala has not died once, because he certainly didn't die in the first round. It was a flawless. Second round, he's the one that clutched out, and no, he died. He has not died.
No,
They changed the scoreboard around, by the way. That's very confusing.
It is, yeah.
They changed the scoreboard to, so deaths, it went from KAD to KDA, and no, we're not talking about the pop group.
And they didn't change it in game, too, with the overlay. Like the spectator?
Yes, when you hold tab, it's KDA. When you look at the UI in Spectator, it's KAD. So,
yeah. So everyone's confused. Just so we're all, yeah, just we have to wrap your brain around the multiple different, anyway, no, yes, Chala hasn't died yet. As you mentioned, Parker, and I mean, he'll probably die at some point.
So for the record, so far in this season of the NA League, Chala has played 20 rounds and he's died how many times?
4.
There you go. Every 4 rounds, Chala dies once. Just in case anybody's curious.
Every 4 rounds in Rainbow Six, a Chala dies 1 time.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
It's a flawless cycle for TSM. Start things off 3-0. Now,
True.
obviously, if we look at those 3 bomb sites in isolation, just look at them as like a small game in and of itself. Everything that DZ did on those 3 rounds differed round by round by round, and I like that approach from DarkZero. The first round, well, they tried to play a little bit spread out after they lost Hyper early. They realized how crucial Azofia was for them. Losing that early on completely reshapes your attack. Second round, same thing happens, but they try to play closer together. They take control of objective quickly, isolate the players on TSM, and force TSM to play on the retake. Smart move as well. Third round, they realize that with how hunkered down Bolo is, if they can get Bolo out of there very quickly, a lot of the utility from the defenders was all in one spot. It should leave everybody else strung a little thin. They did that, and BC almost accomplished it, but DZ got cut down to size. Even though they came out empty-handed, Michael, I like that DZ is trying different things on every single take.
Yeah, no, you do have to pay respect where it's due. I think this scoreline is very... It misconstrues the truth. The truth is that this has been a close contest for many of these rounds. Not all of them, mindly. We did have that flawless to start things off, but here we go. Pambazoo already in code check, fast into the building, wasting no time, and he's got good control, but Chala will shut him down as Pambazoo tries to use his control for more. NJR's inside as well. Pistol out though, and Pojo will shut him down. It's a 3-on-3, but the back and forth will continue. The vertical control coming in big for TSM. This rush strat for DZ has not worked out as they'd hope. BC now in the 1 versus 2, but he's got 2 minutes to work with, so he's not feeling any type of constraint. He'll move upstairs knowing that Bolo was able to get a pick from above earlier in the round, and it's worth noting that Chala has finally died.
You look at everybody that's currently playing in the NA League. If there's anybody that I would want in this situation right now, it comes down to 3 men. Chala, Bosco, and BC. Now, obviously, BC is in the server at the moment, and he's playing on an operator with lots of utility. Now, I would say that, but BC's already expended all of it. He used it to open up some of the walls, and now he'll go hunting for these kills because he has nothing else to his name. That also includes a lack of intel. Briefly spotting the head of Merc, who didn't need to peek again. Wait for it and let him come to you, but Merc decides to go for it, leaving Bolo and BC in a 1v1 showdown that Bolo comes out on top of. TSM are up 4-0.
What an excellent try from BC, though. But seriously, one thing I'm noticing so far through this match is actually it's BC and Pojo who are landing some of the nuttier shots. Obviously, Bolo is, but you expect that from him. But it's just impressive to see that both of them can so quickly shrug off what must be at least a little bit of rust. And well played to BC for a try there, but Bolo's better in the end, and he'll take that one. So 4-0. Rush strat from DZ. Parker, you, just the round prior, mentioned how it's interesting and impressive that DarkZero are constantly bringing out new strategies. And, well, that round was a great example to prove your point. A rush strat, but not a fully chaotic one. It was well-placed rushes from the whole team on DarkZero, where they're getting key locations to play off crossfires with each other. The timing didn't line up perfectly for DarkZero, and that's ultimately, I think, what caused them so much damage there. There were also some misguided pushes from certain players, like Pambazoo, trying to force out a coat check just because one of his teammates had already made it in through prep. That's not the right timing for that push, and he got cut down in that cross. If he's holding the rotation there a little bit longer, makes all the difference. That means NJR is going to be able to do more work from prep. Anyway, timing happens like that sometimes. But all the same, as much as this is weird, I have to commend DarkZero for at least trying something new, even though it didn't work.
The entry from DZ has been bad across the board, whether it be forfeiting those opening picks, a nitro cell sailing in your direction, sight unseen. TSM is perfect right now, 4-0, and they've won the opening duel in every single round. That goes a long way, especially when the first people to die are often Hyper and Eclipse. They make up 3 of those 4 early deaths. You lose your grenades right away. You lose tons of soft destruction if you lose Sledge and Eclipse in that position. You lose your concussions and your destruction in Hyper, on top of just having, outside of maybe Chala, the next best player presently in the NA League if Hyper goes down. So DZ losing one of those 2 early on, that's why NJR and Pambazoo are on this roster in so many ways. That's a huge part of why Pambazoo was brought in. So the fact that he's having a tough game so far obviously doesn't help any. Irrespective of how Hyper and Eclipse are doing, you need Panda to be showing up, and whether it's the team failing him or him not playing off of his own game sense, I can't make that call.
Yeah, and ultimately it's beside the point. It's, we just need to see the performance. The practical effects are the focus here right now. And DarkZero, well, they've got good control here. At least in this round, this is solid control inside Train. You can use this to launch an attack into Dining. This is the opportunity for DZ to finally pick up a round. No guarantee of that, of course, but they're looking solid on their structure. TSM still have vertical, though. They haven't been fully pushed out. So that's going to be a task that DarkZero has to accomplish later in the round, or they will be punished for not having done so. It's Merc upstairs by White with Pojo in tandem to hold this position, and they're just going to stay here as long as they can. Wait out the clock.
Now, all of DZ's focus is on A at the moment, but B is where we see the plant go down most of the time in these matchups. And with BC doing just that a couple rounds prior, you have to imagine that that's going to be the focus. Problem is that you really do not have control of the B bomb site until you have control of Cocktail above. And guess what? DZ at the moment really doesn't have control of any significant map control, and they're going to have to rotate. 40 seconds remaining. They will need to be quick on this, because Pojo Man and Merc still Lord above. You had achieved playing down below. They're all spread out. So if you want to go for A, go right ahead, but then there's Bolo in his position by the stairs, and he will stop you in your tracks. Another opening duel breaks in favor of TSM, though. Answered back by Hyper. He's taken out. Chala now to the rescue. He'll play off of the default spot. Drone goes down. Diffuser surrendered too, as everybody from DZ is dropping. Leaves NJR and Pambazoo in a 2v4. Make that just 1 as NJR hits the dust. Pambazoo tries to hit Achieved, but he gets jumped on, and it's 5-0 for TSM.
Wow. That was, honestly, that one was a bit tough to watch there, Parker, and you made note of it as it was happening, and you were right. Essentially what's going on there is DarkZero, they've gotten some control, but no important control. None of the extremely relevant, this is what we can use to finish off an attack sort of control. We're talking about vertical, for example. And, well, TSM still has that vertical, and they waited out the round, and the push starts coming in from DZ, but since they don't have any good avenues, I mean, they're trying to push it through 90. Gas canister stop them. They're being peeked from Pillar, getting mowed down from the flank. Now they don't really have any opportunity to push into Pillars, and 90 is not an option. Well, you can't push through Fireplace because that's a death sentence. It's just bottleneck after bottleneck, even if you open the wall. What do you do at this point if you're DarkZero? Especially since you lost the one lurker you had upstairs. Once you lose that player, you don't have any, there's no extra angle to your attack. You're just stuck between a rock and a hard place at that point. And DZ's raw mechanical wasn't enough to dig them out of that round. So TSM, as we have seen them do 5 times in a row now, completely locked out that round. We're going back to the top floor for the final round of the first half, and looks like we're getting another one of those really interesting heavy stack of utility on pixel sort of setups, Parker.
Well, this was billed as a very pivotal match for DarkZero, and it's certainly one that I know that our corporate overlords would be pushing as the match of the day. And on paper, this absolutely was, but in the server, this has been anything but a match worthy of watching at this moment, or at least in regards to how it was billed. This has been a 5-0 walloping from TSM, and what might be, frankly, one of the more embarrassing losses that DarkZero has ever suffered as an organization. Now, don't get me wrong, so far, TSM have obliterated every team that they've faced, but I think it's fair to say that historically, neither Disrupt nor Beast Coast have been on the same level as DZ, so they can very easily just be outliers. They're teams that have regressed. TSM is playing really well. Wait for a real challenge, I suspect some of their fans might say. In this particular instance, we're still waiting for a real challenge.
Yeah, and that was the question I had going into this match, Parker, was, is DarkZero going to be the team that finally shows the weakness in TSM, because through this stage, TSM have been, I mean, frankly, they've been playing the best Siege I've seen out of the NAL over the last 2 seasons or so. But I thought surely it would be fleeting. Oh my, he got away with it again, Parker!
The same spot, the same C4, but this time it's not just Eclipse who's down for the count. BC will join him. The last time that DarkZero attacked this site back in the 3rd round, BC was so instrumental. He made space, took out the castle barricade on bathroom. He flew in. He took out the smoke that was playing on the stairs and continued to push forward, or rather Pojo in that regard, or achieved in that regard, whoever was playing over by the stairs back in round number 3. None of that's going to happen now. And now DZ have been just totally knocked off of their stride.
Another C4, but this one was terrible from Achieved. We all have those. It probably has something to do with the stairs. It's weird. Sometimes the top of the stairs will land you higher or lower. It's a little inconsistent, so not necessarily Achieved's fault, but I don't know. I'm not playing right now. What I do know is that DZ are 2 down, and Hyper's going to go for a Hail Mary play, trying to repel in through Heaven. The drop from Skylight from Pambazoo doesn't work. Neither does Hyper's play. It's just NJR under Skylight. He'll die in due course. He took one with him, but he's dead as well. So TSM, flawless half, Parker. 6 in a row, excuse me. Yeah, so I guess it wasn't just to do with the teams that TSM have been playing. I really, at this point, you could kind of, I think, unequivocally state that TSM are playing just a different type of Siege in the NAL.
There's the Nitro cell that we saw, catching both of them on that repel too, Michael.
Yeah.
6-0 for TSM. The stats right now on entry, terrible for DarkZero. They got 1 objective down. That was it. It was not successful. The retake from TSM proved to be more effective. TSM on their opening duels went 6-0 in that half. They completed a perfect cycle, not going to a 4th bomb site. They stayed with Kitchen Reading Cocktail both times, and a flawless round started us off. It's now match point for TSM, who have guaranteed themselves at least 1 point in the standings. So it means that they can't be caught by DarkZero today. DZ cannot take first place, no matter what happens here. Even if DZ storms back and wins 8-6, which is their favorite scoreline so far through the 2 first matchups. Well, we speculated before we got into the game, and it was something that was talked about on the broadcast back on Wednesday. If you're DarkZero, how do you prevent yourself from choking the lead and forcing your team to go to overtime? Well, I suppose just never getting the lead is a good way to do that. But imagine this. You're a fan of DarkZero. You suffered through those 2 matches on Tuesday and Wednesday. Your heart palpitations getting worse and worse as that gap closed, and then finally they gave you some salvation by finishing it out in overtime. Would you rather have that, or would you rather have this if you're a fan of DarkZero? It's a rhetorical question.
I mean, yeah, I'd rather have that, obviously. I mean, who knows? Maybe this is the 6-0 rally comeback from DarkZero that's about to happen right now. I doubt it, but maybe. Top floor defense for DarkZero to try and stave off defeat here. They're going to bring the Ella shotgun play for Cigar. Now, this is a really solid way to stop a push in through top red and obviously new drop, but that's, you know, that's your typical push. Obviously, TSM are going to find a way to dislodge this. It's not going to be easy, though. This is a tough task to get rid of a player in that spot with that shotgun. Maybe TSM will try for a different take entirely. They've got 3 players over by Piano right now. They're just droning out, seeing what's going on here. Hyper is ready for a run out over by Dining. And when he goes for that run out, he's going to find Bolo, but Bolo finds him in turn. Oh, no. He was ready for it, Parker.
That's unfortunate for them. And now it's NJR playing in a spot that we'd seen Bolo play out of, absorbing some damage. Eclipse does too. TSM haven't given up anything, and they want yet another flawless round. This would make 2 flawlesses back-to-back, and would mean that it's been over a week at the conclusion of today's matches since TSM has lost a single round. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, though, because there's still immense staying power here from DZ. And with the composition that they have and the utility that's still upright right now, it's entirely possible that DZ pull this one out, as grim as things may look.
Ooh, that's a tough angle for both these players, and NJR's better. Down goes Achieved. NJR has been the one shining light for DarkZero, as he's picked up most of the kills on his team, and Eclipse will add to it with a shotgun kill and a Merc inside of Cigar. Pojo, though, will get Pambazoo, who overextends And now we're back to even man count.
Pambazoo's going to be able to sit on that bulletproof camera that's staring at the flank of Eclipse for the remainder of the round. So even while he's dead on that cam duty, as you can see, they'll provide Eclipse a little bit more understanding and knowledge. But no, he peeks out in the wrong way. That camera doesn't see from above. It leaves BC and NJR. Now, having a UMP might not be the gun that you usually want, but with somebody like BC, he can make just about anything work. The problem for TSM at this point is that there's only 30 seconds left. You're going to have to confront the 2 remaining members of DarkZero, or at least try to pull off an execute and then win in the retake. NJR still situated over by White Stairs and White Corridor, just waiting very patiently. He's got 2 spam marks. If he swings on out, he might be able to capitalize off of this. BC takes out Pojaman. Bolo is on the hunt. He sees the gun. Down goes NJR. BC in a 1v2 match on the line. A flawless for TSM is in the books. And it's not just in the books, it's a reality. 7-0 for TSM yet again. Chala, a single death. Keep padding those stats. And another 3 points for TSM here in the NA League, Michael.
That is 5 deaths over 3 matches for Chala, and TSM continue their indomitable streak that they've had so far through this stage. I said it last time I watched TSM play. I will reiterate it now. This is the best iteration of TSM I have ever seen, Parker.
Unbelievable. 24 rounds have been played by TSM through these 3 games. 24 rounds. That's it. That's crazy. They are 21 and what is it? 21 and 3? 24 rounds that they played. It's absolutely...
They aren't losing a lot.
It's absolutely insane. 21 and 3, 2 flawless rounds back to back. There was a lot of chatter among NA players as to what TSM learned at the 6 Invitational. NA as a region did not exactly have the greatest performance. No region did outside of Latin America, if we're being completely sincere. But out of all the teams that emerged from SI, other than a team headquartered in Brazil, it certainly seems like TSM has learned by far and away the most, and they are mighty scary right now.
I said another thing I also mentioned last time I saw TSM, and I want to reiterate it again here. You will see it maybe by the end of this stage, but certainly by next stage, whenever that happens to be, teams emulating the defensive meta specifically that we're seeing from TSM right now. In North America, they are currently paving their own way in their own type of setup and defensive strategy. It is not too dissimilar to other strategies we see in the NAL. It's just ever so slightly different in that the way they like staunchly defend their positions. That's the biggest takeaway that I'm noticing, and it's working so well for TSM because they have the mechanical skill to back it up. They give themselves basic setups, and then they just hold, and it works for them.
And that was even with TSM committing a bunch of mistakes today. Some chances where they just didn't need to engage, and yet they did. Merc was an unfortunate culprit of that a couple times today, where they were in very favorable numbers positions, and Merc would still try to peek anyway when he could just sit and wait and hold angles like the rest of his teammates. Now, that's just a small thing, and that's actually a hallmark of Merc's playstyle. Some days he ends up with 20 kills, and some days he ends up with 2 because of it. But there's still more that TSM can refine. As for the other 3 teams that have so far faced TSM and had to deal with them, there's a lot that they could refine as well. The analysts will break it down in just a moment, but before we get there, we have a commercial break for you, so don't touch that browser. We'll be right back. What does it take to call next? Follow us for a deep dive into the Rainbow Six community, breaking down barriers, taking you behind the scenes, and showing what it means to level up.
Oh. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the NAO. We saw TSM just put on a clinic once again. And I was just talking about it in the back room with Stokes. They have gone 21-3 in rounds so far here in stage 2. Fellas, we're witnessing dominance right now.
Yeah, TSM haven't lost a round in a week, Veli. Put that in perspective. Didn't lose one against Beast Coast, haven't lost one here. Yes, DarkZero played an utterly terrible game, but TSM still should get credit for that. The opening picks, what Pojo Man was doing, the fact that a lot of them were nitro cells, and they completely discombobulated the entirety of DarkZero's attacking strategy. Panba and Hyper with 1 kill apiece. Jacob, and Bolo, Pojo Man, and Shala are the 3 guys at the top. What did we just watch?
If Panba and Hyper got together, they'd have enough utensils to eat sushi. They'd have a whole set of chopsticks.
Oh, no.
Yo, I'm not gonna lie, that was insane. DarkZero versus TSM, Jesse, I thought was going to be way closer than this.
I mean, I guess on paper, this maybe should have been expected. You go to Kafe against the best Kafe team in all of North America. You go against TSM, who have been dominant throughout the first week, and they kind of slam you again. I definitely did have more hope for DarkZero. I mean, they're a team that historically does well when they kind of pull up those weird maps, but this just wasn't the play at all. TSM ran a clinic over DarkZero. It just seems like they know exactly what to do in every situation. I don't know how you beat TSM at this point, Veli. They look unbeatable.
You can't. You got to turn off their monitors, man, because even all right, so Bolo, he had 100% cost and went unkillable, right? Then Chala said, I'm going to one-up you. I'm going to get 100 cost again. Then Pojo Man said, hey, guess what? I'm a coach. I can do the same thing. Yeah. They are so deep right now when it comes to talent. It's incredible. And Pojo Man going 11-3. With 3 opening kills. That is insane. But there goes your stat lines for that. TSM wins 7-0 against DarkZero. And Jesse, I stepped away when it happened, but you were really giddy about something that Bolo did on Kafe. What was it, man?
I mean, I want to start calling this the Bolo hold, because when they're on that cocktail bomb site, you know, they're up in that top floor bathroom, Bolo puts himself in a fortress, and I swear this is his best position of any map in the game. It's got to be his favorite spot to play, because he goes here all the time, right? We can look back at TSM historically. Bolo loves this position, and what they were doing at SI and what they're doing here is they just give him literally every piece of utility that they have, and it works out. He had 3 Surya gates being used for him. He had multiple mute jammers. He had barricades being put up all around him, castle barricades that is. He had ADSs as well. And so every single member of the team is contributing their utility towards Bolo's position. So it's going to take a lot of coordination, a lot of focus to clear him out. So when you're on that window, you know, you're trying to clear him out, what's the last thing you want? You want Pojo Man throwing C4s out the window at you. Got 1 kill the first time, 2 kills the second time. I really don't know how you beat a push like, or a hold like this. TSM have rocked it time and time again. Bolo in that position is so comfortable. He's so good to play around those angles with that mirror window. It's really dangerous. And I think at some point you just got to start like banning mirror against TSM on this map because it's so good, and Bolo here is just nasty.
What time does Bolo play? Everyone in the NAL should hope never. Jacob, we heard Kickstarter talk about TSM in the meta, right? And how TSM are looking so good with it. They're very efficient. You also, you were just harping off the fact that they were so good in a particular style of play. What exactly was that?
It's more like, for Kafe specifically, we've seen it a couple of times, they simply don't fall back. Like, Kicks will talk about this all the time, but it's the idea of kind of reinventing North America's playstyle on Kafe a little bit. They don't rotate back after, you know, a minute and a half has elapsed in the round. They're going to stick and hold on to those positions, those chokeholds, for the life of them, even if it kills them, in order to waste as much time as possible. It got so bad, by the way, that once we were on round 4, it's 3-0 for TSM, doing the exact same holds. We then go downstairs to Kitchen. TSM, last time they defended Kitchen, were all the way up on the top floor holding some default rotations. So what does DarkZero do? They say, okay, if TSM's going to hold this kind of stuff, we're just going to rush. It doesn't work because TSM still holds so much vertical pressure on a map like Kafe where verticality is key. And when they try to make their approach, they get shut down. It comes down to BC almost clutching a 1v2, but it still doesn't work because TSM's pressure is immaculate. That's several kills by Pojo Man, regardless if it was by Nitro Cell or otherwise, as the opening frag, which you never want to have happen on defense. It's winning 1vx situations. In this case, there were 3 of them, even though they were contextually different a little bit. Every single time TSM could step up, even if there were some things that DarkZero was doing right, because the pressure is simply insurmountable and there is nothing that DarkZero could do.
And speaking of nothing that DarkZero could do, Jesse, what were some things that DarkZero failed to do in this game? Because it seemed like nothing worked for him. Even their star player, Hyper, who we all know is just a god at the game, I mean, he didn't have an answer as well. What was happening?
I mean, I think you praise teams a lot of times for adapting, right? And DarkZero definitely tried that. You know, that first round didn't go well on their cooking attacks, and then they went to their reading attacks and it didn't really work out. So rounds 4, they go for a rush. I don't really get that because their top-down clear hadn't proven to fail yet, right? They just lost 2 really aggressive opening picks. I still believe their top 4 push would have gone a lot better than their rush one. And then in round 5 as well, I mean, they just choose not to clear that top floor on the reading defense. They instead go for this weird kind of train take without really getting any ground for the first like 2 minutes. And again, you go back to round 2, the last time they played that bomb site, it was like a 1v1. I mean, you had a 1v3 that you ended up clutching back very nearly. So it really felt like DarkZero were in some bad positions, but like not terrible positions. And when they ran those bomb sites back, they did something totally wild, crazy. It was never going to work. And I really do wish that we saw DarkZero do a little bit less adapting so that maybe they just try the same thing twice and maybe the second time would work out.
Jacob, how long do you honestly think this streak is going to last for TSM? 2 play days in a row, they won 7-0. They won the first play day 7-3. This is incredible stuff. How long do you think this is going to last? Do you see any weaknesses at all?
I do think, or I agree with Kix from what he said before the game started, and that DarkZero was supposed to be more of a challenge. DG had a roster move, Beast Coast had a roster move, and I think we kind of expected TSM was going to beat them no problem. This game,
everyone was praising DarkZero crazy. Even on the timeline, ex-pros were as well.
For very good reason, too.
It wasn't
because
expected.
You didn't think after 2 new players come in that they will do that well or perform that systematically, but it's just TSM riding a completely different formula at this stage. I would not be surprised if we go through the rest of stage 2 and at this point TSM potentially going 9-0. I'm not, or 8-0, 9-0, whatever it is. I'm not really kidding about that either because it's against DarkZero, one of the teams that came out with a very hot streak of momentum. We need Sonics to show up. We need OXG to do something crazy. So far, the TSM train has left the station and it's running on some kind of gasoline I don't even think has a name at this point because it's just running on Bolo juice. It's insane.
Bolo juice is definitely feeling that vehicle.
I regret saying that now. Oh no.
Yeah, it's definitely Bolo juice. It's the thing now. So when we had a community poll, and if you guys follow the social pages that we have, especially on Twitter, you definitely would have seen it. Now the question was for game 1, Chala and Hyper currently top in the league in kill differential at positive 17. Who will be higher after this match? I mean, we know the answer right now, but Jesse, who do you think won that? This is actually a good one. Hyper is extremely popular. Same with Chala.
Yeah, but it's TSM and the way they've been playing, I think
Hyper.
I don't care. I mean, TSM are just on a different level from every team in North America right now. If you didn't pick Chala, that's on you.
All right, Jacob, who you got, man?
One of them has appreciation post in the subreddit and the other one doesn't. I'm going with Chala.
Well, both of you went with an L. It's going to be Hyper that wins it outright.
Really?
No, I'm playing.
Really?
TSM won at 78%. Chala's
Stop playing with me.
I hate it here.
Oh, actually, 61%. It changed up. Okay, so there you go. So, fellas, coming up next, we're going to have a really good game. It's going to be Disrupt Gaming versus Space Station Gaming. 2 teams that we saw pretty much struggle so far this year as Space Station are getting used to their new roster change. And the same thing with Disrupt Gaming. It's going to be a banger. We'll catch you guys on the other side of this break.